My name is John Millman Dwyer, and I am so proud to come to you today because I am coming to you representing New Hope Celebrates History, and we are presenting New Hope Celebrates History LGBTQ plus Artists and Authors Lecture Series. This is so important. I know you're tuning in because you're interested in where we've been, because who you are today, a lot of it has to do with where you've been before. And where we're going, of course, that's going to depend on all of this as well, where we've been. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about history, they think of June 1969 and Stonewall, right? Now, all of that time from then until now is part of our history, and there are people alive right now who can tell it. It is important for us to record it. It is important for us to bring the people to you, and that is what we're going to do. We're going to bring authors and artists and performing artists, different people who can tell their story to you, because it's important to talk about now. Now, I know that history did not start in 1969 for gay people. I know that years ago there was Adam and Steve, and probably around the corner there was Midge and Mary in the mission section of San Francisco heaven, right? But before we get to the guests who you're tuned in for tonight, I want to tell you about what's coming up, because that's going to excite you as well. Now, one of the people that we have booked, we've got all these different people that we're trying to get, and they're going to be, that's the secret, but you're going to be excited by them once we get them booked. But one of the people that we have is a resident of Tinicum named Damian McNichol, who is known for his books, A Son Called Gabriel and The Moment of Truth. Now, those books were Lambda Literary Award nominees. And so this is exciting that we're getting to hear about what it is like to be a man who came. This is about a man who came from Northern Ireland and his gay experience in Northern Ireland and how he transitioned over here to America. So we're getting the immigrant story. We're going to have so much more, and it's important for us to do this. Especially, it's important this month because it's October. It's National Gay History Month. So hey, we're getting it all on. We're instituting this thing right when it should be, right? Yeah. So excited about that. Why is New Hope gay? Well, a lot of it has to do with the arts. Now, you know that if this were a small town and the Farmer Jones was just the guy who lived here and it was all agriculture, we're not going to be coming out, gay people, LGBTQ people, we're not going to be coming out to him and his cow Bessie. Come on. We're here because of the arts. We're here because places like Key West, which had Tennessee Williams and Ernest Hemingway, Provincetown, which had Eugene O'Neill, we have the Bucks County Playhouse. When the Bucks County Playhouse came here and the artists came here, they made this a welcoming place for us to be. And one of those welcoming places was Odette's. Odette Myrtle. Odette Myrtle is a Broadway actress and a film actress. And she came here and did an after theater club called Odette's on River Road. And it was a hit from the get-go. And it continued for decades after Odette passed on. And one of the driving forces of it was Bob Egan. Now, if you're from this area, everybody knows Bob Egan. They know him because, well, for one reason, he never ages. We all hate him for that. But we love him. We love him because he's brilliant. He's a brilliant accompanist. He's accompanied all these Broadway greats. I mean, I was so impressed when I came to New Hope and saw Karen Akers there, and Ann Hampton Calloway and all these wonderful people. So Bob's going to be talking about that and all of the arts and all of the wonderful people who were there. And that's going to be coming up in just one moment. But one thing that I wanted to tell you, he's going to be doing the talk, and then there's going to be a Q&A for you. And if you want to find out more about us, look down here at the bottom. It says newhopecelebrateshistory.org. And you can go on to that and find out more about us. But stay tuned till the end because Dan Brooks has an important message for you. And now, without further ado, here is our own Bob Egan.
got to start out with a song, right? You can't just talk. I am most comfortable when I am sitting behind a piano, so it's probably befitting that I would start with playing something. That's called Old Friend. Here's to us, who's like us, damn few, Stephen Sondheim's words, which says a lot about New Hope, about how we all feel about each other. Thank you for joining us tonight. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than talking about Odette's. I realized recently that I spent actually a third of my life at Odette's. And I was actually at Odette's 3 years longer than Odette was at Odette's. But Odette's and New Hope has always been very special to me, probably since even high school. I think I'm going to go back and talk to you a little bit about that before we get to Odette's. So like I grew up in Warminster. I grew up like probably 25 minutes away from here. And most of my friends were like about 2 years older than me. So they all started getting their licenses and driving before I did. And when the weekends came, we would all pile in a car and we would head up to New Hope. Oh, sometimes we go to Washington Crossing or go to Bowman's Hill and climb the tower. But really, we really couldn't wait to get to New Hope, to the shops. This is all like in 1972, 73, 74, 75. We couldn't wait to get to like the head shops, the rock and roll shops, like the now and then shop, and buy rock and roll posters, of your favorite group that glowed in the dark when you turn your lights off with your black light on back then. But the New Hope was the coolest thing. And I just remember being mesmerized because everything about New Hope was so completely different than how I grew up, where I grew up. I grew up in a very, a great neighborhood. I mean, middle class, very white. I didn't have any black friends, Asian friends, Jewish friends. I had all just white Protestant Catholic friends, and that was all I knew. I felt like my life didn't really start to begin until I got to college, and then it was like I was like a kid in a candy shop just because of people, because I was meeting more interesting people and more all kinds of people. And whenever we came to New Hope, I just would look around and I'd look at everybody doing their own thing, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. I said, I want to live here someday. And I remember thinking that thought, and now who would have thought that actually 10 years later than graduating high school, I would end up living here and still live here 35 years. So New Hope is a very special area, a very special town. I've always said Odette's was not labeled anything. Odette's to me represented what New Hope was represented. What New Hope is great about its diversity of people, its openness to accept everybody. As a nun, a customer of mine when I played at a hospital, she used to have an expression that says so much about how I feel about New Hope and about as a person. She always said, "I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be celebrated." And this is from a nun that was 90 years old. Feisty thing. But it was such I said to her, wow, that's really good. That's really, but it meant something completely different to her. But boy, I want to be tolerated. I want to be celebrated, not tolerated. And New Hope just celebrated all kinds of people. So the thing with Odette's, though, how did my connection come up with Odette's? So when I was going to college in Philadelphia, I got to know Roger Adams, who was Odette's son. Roger was playing at a piano bar down there, and he was doing the happy hour. And I don't know how, but somehow we already kind of knew each other, or we just talked like we knew each other our whole lives, but I didn't know him. And became friends, and later I found out that he was Odette's son. Odette died. The year Odette died was the year I turned 21, so I was never old enough to come to the restaurant, so I never met her. But from my friendship with Roger, I felt like I knew her. And he told me endless stories about her and about what went on in all those years from 1960 to 1978. And I would see pictures of like old Halloween pictures of Odette's where she embraced everybody. She had open arms. She had a mouth on her. He told me lots of stories about her, and I can't repeat any of them on the air. But she was the kind of person I wish I knew. I just wish I knew. I wish I hung out with. Years ago, friends of mine found this at a antique shop, And it's just a great picture of her in one of her many black. She was in like 28 black and white movies, and but mainly for Broadway, she was known for South Pacific. South Pacific is a really interesting musical if you live in New Hope, because South Pacific was written by Rodgers and Hammerstein, who lived in, Oscar Hammerstein lived in Doylestown. And then you had James A. Michener, who wrote the book Tales of the South Pacific. You had him both in Soulberry. So it was kind of interesting that South Pacific was completely conceived out of Bucks County, out of New Hope area. And that when Juanita Hall, the original Bloody Mary, was leaving, they replaced her with Odette. Odette played piano. I think she played piano, but she sang and she played the violin. In fact, Jerome Kern had written a musical about her called The Cat and the Fiddle. And nobody really ever heard of this, but Roger gave me, before he had passed away, he gave me his mother's score signed by Jerome Kern. And I always felt like I knew her. And so anyway, so when my friends bought the restaurant, Rocky and Steve had bought the restaurant back in '85, and it was everything in my life like was sort of happened around Odette's. Like as they were buying Odette's, their realtor said, "I've got a house for you," and she sold me my house. So that happened at the same time that Odette's happened. And Rocky said, they said, we want to have a piano bar. And I said, well, you've got jazz on the weekends. They said, well, we want a piano bar and we want you to run all that. So I was, wow, great. Nothing like being on something from the ground up. And when I had that thought of having a piano bar, just thoughts had gone through my head about my first experience as a guest going to a piano bar. I had gone to a piano bar with friends from college, and we were all at a table, and we were all singing along and having fun. And I wanted to get up with, I think, another friend from the table. We all got up and went up to sing with everybody. And everybody kind of looked at us like, who are you? And I felt very uncomfortable. I felt like these all people knew each other. It was a clique. They felt like I was kind of invading their space. I just didn't feel very welcoming. And I didn't feel good about that. So I had decided in my head that whenever I get a piano bar and I'm holding court, I want to make sure that nobody ever feels when they walk in that door the way I felt that night. And of course, we go to do the piano bar at Odette's, and there's the piano and there's the door. So I just felt the need. Yeah, there we were at the piano. That's how we looked all in the corner. We would all hang out, get really silly. And I was back on the piano, and there's Jane, and there's a microphone, and people always thought I sang because there was a microphone in front of me, but it was never for me to sing. It was for me to have everyone else sing and to lead everybody. But that's what our little corner looked like. Doesn't it look like we're having fun? So I wanted everybody to feel welcome, and that was really important to me. And the more and more I kept hearing about Odette, the more stories about her, I don't know why. I just felt like this was so meant to be, that I was there in this place. So 2 years into having the piano, Roger. Oh, anyway, so Roger was a pianist. Roger was a music director. He was a rehearsal pianist for Rodgers and Hammerstein, but he was the rehearsal pianist for Damn Yankees, Pajama Game, Mame, Once Upon a Mattress. And so all those scores, when you look at it, it says dance arrangements by Roger Adams. So Roger was a real Broadway person. And Roger loved to hang out with me and loved to tell me stories. He would call me up and say, darling, let's have lunch. And then he would just tell me these stories. I wish I had a smartphone then or something I could record these incredible stories and scandals too. So years later, about 2 years into the piano bar at Odette's, I was working with a singer named Courtney Day. Yeah, there she is. And Courtney and I, our goal when we were working together was to do a cabaret show at Don't Tell Mamas in New Hope. I think Don't Tell Mamas cabaret was open like maybe a year or two before we opened at Odette's. So we had been rehearsing, and I had an idea. I said, why don't I move the piano from the bar, roll it over into this other room, and we'll put on a show and we'll try it out before we go to New York. So we did that. We put a little sign up saying cabaret night in the dining room on the left. And then we were sold out immediately. By the time the show happened, that's not Courtney in the room, but the second show that took place in the room was Michael Richard Kelly. And after we had banged up the piano or banged up the wall, moving the baby grand piano a couple times into the room, Rocky said, "I'm getting you an upright." And he would not get me anything bigger than an upright. So we got that upright piano. We would roll it in, put it on the side. We had like 2 lights up in the ceiling, and that's what we had. And they weren't even gelled lights. They were just bright white lights. But at least we weren't going to bang, because the doors to going into the other room were literally within a half inch of the width of the piano. So if you weren't perfectly straight, you would scratch the wall. And that you didn't want to upset Rocky. He had a temper. But he was wonderful. He was one of my dearest friends too. But you didn't want to upset him. So we started the cabaret, and it was a real joy. It was a real challenge trying to get that started for the first 2 years. I had it with the piano bar. We had so many different people singing, and none of them, I would say any of them were ready to do their own shows yet in the cabaret. And I didn't know any stars yet. So I was going to Michael Kelly and Courtney and lots of performers I knew in Philadelphia. And here's another one. This one is Barbara Noska. Barbara Noska was probably maybe the third performer to play in that room. And the reason that first of all, there were several reasons that attracted me to having her. You'll notice in the picture the famous Odette lamp. That lamp in the window was Odette's. It's just, they say the lamp is haunted. I don't know. It probably was. But that lamp was always in that window till the restaurant closed. And the reason why I was so excited about having Barbara, not only because she was naughty and bawdy and all that, she was so funny, but she worked with an accordion player, which meant I didn't have to move the damn piano. So those were the very early years. And then we had a stroke of luck. One of my friends in New York said to me, I would like you to meet Margaret Whiting. The Margaret Whiting. Everyone knows Margaret Whiting mostly from her song Moonlight in Vermont. But he introduced me to Margaret Whiting. Rocky and I went up and had lunch with Margaret. We went up and met with some of her friends in the cabaret business. She tried to introduce us to everybody. And the love affair began. So anyway, she said, "I'm going to come down and I'll perform." It was a huge hit. All of a sudden, we were, it's like almost 2 years into this. All of a sudden, everyone knew who we were. We were recognized. We were in the newspapers. And Margaret Whiting, social media wasn't out then, but Margaret was like, she must have had Twitter or something back then, because as soon as Margaret came, she must have told the world, "You got to play this room before you go to New York," which is what Courtney and I were doing too, which is interesting. So Margaret came and she did a show, and of course it sold out all weekend. And then a floodgates opened of endless amounts of stars, and stars we weren't even ready for. But stars I dreamed of having, people like Maureen McGovern and Ann Hampton Calloway, Liz Calloway. The list is just endless of all these great people that I always loved and followed. Sharon McKnight was a big favorite of mine. And so these people just started pouring out. And then I brought Roger back to the restaurant. And Roger, here's the story. Roger would not go back in the restaurant since his mother had passed away. The restaurant left him some bad memories. They had a little bit of a falling out. I think he had a little bit of a drinking issue. And I don't know whether she didn't want him in the restaurant or what, but it was not a happy ending. So I had Julie Wilson come. Now, Julie was very fond of Roger, and Roger was very fond of Julie. They had done a show together many years before that, and he just was so desperate to see Julie. So I brought Julie in. Julie did a show, and I invited him up for lunch and to show him the room. And they introduced him to Rocky, and he had such a lovely time. He was just so excited about Julie Wilson coming that he invited us over to his apartment, in which he pulled out from his bed about 20 pictures of Odette, some of which you'll see in some pictures coming up of his mother. And he just gave it to us and said, make a copy and bring them back whenever. Then he came and saw Julie Wilson, and he was in tears and blown away. And the best words that he possibly could have said to me on the way out was, he said, Mother would have loved this. I never knew his mother, but to say Mother would have loved this was like an amazing thing. But over the years at the cabaret, so many amazing things happened that I had no idea what happened. I started a showcase night, and had a guy in the showcase. I used to always say, people would like call me and they'd say, what, you know, can you hook me up? Can you help me get a start? Get me famous? You have an agent, you have someone. And I said, I don't really have any of those connections. But what I can do for singers is I can give you a stage so that you can be seen and be heard. And if people see you and hear you, maybe something will happen. And one of my showcases, a guy was singing, a young guy from who's visiting his parents in New Hope. And my friend who's a casting agent from Disney just happened to be in the audience. And next thing you know, I'm getting postcards from Disney, Tokyo, and all over the world as he's on tour with them. So that was a great joy. And the other great joy, which I'll show you because I finally found the video and I finally made a little digital sampling of it. So I was not at all responsible for this singer's fame. Out of all the people that played in the room, this is the most famous person that ever played the room. Not only was she famous, she's incredibly famous right now. And when this day, on this one particular day, George Sinkler was putting on a benefit for Bobby Morgan, the bartender who had esophagus cancer. And we put on a benefit, and I was going to be hosting it. So my friend Judy Moore said, can my daughter sing a song in your show? And I said, I don't see how. We're booked. I mean, we have more people. This show's already too long. She said, well, I had 2 songs. I'll give up one of mine. Just put her on. I said, is she any good? I really did say that. She said, no, she's really good. She's really good. We think we're getting a deal with MTV or whatever. And so anyway, this next girl sang. That heals in you. That heals in you. And somehow on the E! True Hollywood story on Pink, somehow you could hear me saying, Alicia's going to be a big star someday. I said that to everybody because we had so many talented people, but talented people didn't always go far. But a couple months later when Alicia hit a big, we couldn't be happier. And that's it. That was the night, and that was the one night it happened, and it was beautiful. And George Sinkler was on the piano, and I was hosting. It was a great time. My other favorite moment in the whole cabaret, every once in a while somebody asked me, what was your favorite moment in the whole 21 years? And I have to say it was this next one. The cabaret was only open like maybe 4 years at this point. This was after the Margaret Whiting thing, and when the stars kept, everybody was calling, they wanted to try out their shows because Rainbow and Stars in New York was doing Rainbow and Stars was doing a 3-week engagement. So all the performers from New York wanted to come to New Hope to try out their shows. And I got a call from Carol Lawrence and Larry Kurt. They were going to do a reunion show, the first time that they had appeared together since West Side Story in like 1959, I think it was. And they wanted to try it out of town, and would I host their show? And of course. And I finally found that clip.
It seems we stood and talked like this before. We looked at each other in the same way then. I still remember where and when. If you might remember, Larry and I were on the cover of West Side. We remember this? Yes, we were the original Maria and Tony of West Side Story at the Winter Garden Theater a few seasons ago.
33 years ago.
That's cute. People didn't want to know the exact number.
No, I'm good at numbers.
I know you are, but this is the first time since then that we've had the joy of standing on a stage together, and
Guy, good stuff, right? I'm so glad I found that. That was one of the better things that came out of the pandemic, was time to go look for things and find everything. So the last thing I was going to talk about with the cabaret is, so you saw where we started, you saw the middle incarnation when we had the stage at the other end of the room, and this is how it looked till the end, till the flood. The room was gorgeous. And if you can show that one picture again, Michael, there you go, right there. So on that back wall are all those pictures that Roger had given us. And Jim Caruso and Wise Guys, his act, they were performing one night, and Jim had decided that Odette's eyes moved, that the painting was haunted. And Odette's eyes moved and followed them every time they looked. And it became a thing that everybody that came from New York knew that there was a haunted painting, which I don't think there was. But anyway, that was our cabaret. And we were so proud of it and very sad to see it all go. But it was a great run. But during that time, we continued. I'm sorry, I almost forgot. Thank you for putting that up. The other absolute highlight was on New Year's Day of 2002 is getting my phone kept ringing off the hook, and they said, congratulations. I said, what? USA Today had named us in the top 10 in the country. And apparently it was a list put together by Michael Feinstein. And Michael had never played Odette's, but everyone that he knew played Odette's and must have told him that it was incredible. And he put us in the top 10 in the country, and he described it to the T. It was perfect. So that's like one of my, and then we won the best of Philly piano bar. That's Paula on the left. God bless her, we miss her. And George Sinkler on the right, and Andy Prescott in the middle. And me when I wore a tux all the time. And we used to put pictures under the piano of all the crazy stuff that we did. Good stuff, good times. Over those years, we did a lot of, kept a lot of traditions going. This is the one that I started. On the first Christmas Eve I was there, I decided that I should try doing a Christmas Eve thing there. I just left my church job, and I thought, let me have a Christmas Eve for all the lonely souls that have nowhere to go. Hell with that. It was a mob scene. We couldn't get rid of people, and we always ended with the candlelit Silent Night, which I still do to this day wherever I am on Christmas Eve. Bastille Day was Odette, that was her favorite day of the year, Bastille Day, of course, being French. And she always had a big party, and it ended up with sparklers. And so we continued that every year. We wore red, white, and blue. We had an accordion player, and we lit the sparklers. These were the pictures I was telling you about. This is in the 60s. This is one of Odette's Halloween parties in the 60s. You can see Odette was fun. Odette was the best. There was, like I said, there was no labels on Odette's. Odette's was a judgment-free place. I feel like I created and kept stuff going at Odette's, but a lot of what I did was already there. She did it. She set the tone. She started all this. All I did was take over and get her son's blessing for that. Some of the other great moments at the piano bar one night, I was playing and Celeste Holm came in. Yeah, the Celeste Holm. And not only did she come in, but I actually got her to sing her song from Oklahoma. I don't know if we have that picture still, but anyway, and then we got her to come back and do a show there. So that was pretty cool. One night I walked in and Nathan Lane was sitting there in the bar. And I said, what's Nathan Lane doing here? He said he came to see your show. They said it's sold out. I said, we got to find room for Nathan Lane. There was no room to be had. He didn't see the show. He had a group of 3. What are you going to do? There's a couple other things I wanted to tell you about this time. Oh, there it is. So this is that picture. Jane is singing, and Celeste was just enthralled watching her. She just loved watching Jane sing, and there's Celeste and Frank singing with me. And I don't think I have one of her just singing by herself with me, but this is really good stuff. These are all legends. Odette just, to me, the perfect world was a place where everyone felt comfortable, a safe zone. One of the more touching things that I came to discover over the years was like for one night, we had a dear customer that we all loved, a tall French man named Joe Gillido. And Joe always sat at the corner of the bar. That was his seat. We actually put a plaque on it. So somebody thought that was offended that somebody should have their own seat. And they ripped it off. We put one back and screwed it in so he couldn't take it off. They couldn't take it off so easily. But anyway, that was Joe's seat. And Joe told me one night that he was waiting for a date, a woman that he had met at a restaurant a couple days before. It was a Friday night. And I was playing, and I'm looking, and he's looking and watching the door. And all of a sudden, this tall woman came in, and I said, "Is that her?" And of course, at the same time I said that, I realized it was a cross-dresser. It was not his date. And he looked and he went, "Oh, no, it's not his date." But there's a point to this story, is that that was one of our favorite customers named April. George Sinclair and his crowd, I think, named him April Love for the song, April Love. And what I found so sweet about that is that cross-dressers come to a place where they feel safe, where they're not going to be judged. Nobody's going to think anything of it. To me, in my world, which I think is a lot like what Odette's was, there's only one rule: nice. If you're nice, I don't care about anything. I don't care what your politics are, what anything. As long as you're nice, you're just a nice person. So this was all of us on a Monday night carrying on. This is just a Monday night crowd. We all gathered for a picture, probably around Christmas time, it looks like. Odette's was not big. It was small, but it was a lot. We had a lot of fun. It was intimate. It probably wouldn't do very well in pandemic terms because it would be hard to 6 feet apart. But anyway, the point was that one thing I learned from Odette's and from all that was wherever I play, I want it to be a safe space. I want everyone to feel comfortable. I don't want anyone to feel that people are looking at them fun. Nobody, it doesn't matter. People are people. And so, and the sad thing was that April had traveled from Wilmington, Delaware to come to New Hope to find a place where she felt comfortable. And unfortunately died in a car accident on one of those trips. So it was sad, but you go to any length to feel comfortable. I know we all feel that way. So in the end, I just want to say that Odette's was, to me, my first impression of New Hope, when I went into Odette's embodied everything I thought New Hope was. It was just a place of all kinds of people. It was fun. You let your hair down. We all laughed at ourselves. There was just no crap. It was just, I never looked forward to going to work as much as I did there. It was the best. So I know you have some, if anybody has questions, we have a question and answer period now, I believe. What was the most famous person to come to Odette's as a customer? Oh, I have to think. Well, of course, there was Nathan Lane. There was Les Tom who came originally as a customer. There were other people, and now I'm drawing a blank who they all were. I wasn't always there when they came. I would be somewhere, and I would come to work, and they go, "You're not gonna believe who I just waited on," and that happened a lot. Just drawing a blank. It's gonna come to me. Another restaurant I worked at, it was Christopher Reeves. I had a waitress come over shaking. She said, "I'm waiting on Superman." But I know that wasn't Odette's. But we had lots of them, and it's going to come to me. Did you put that's very sweet. That's a really good question, John. So I did put up a lot of the performers in the beginning. And then we started getting like people, we had some generous people around here that just wanted to offer the performers their room. And performers were good about it. We didn't have the money for hotels. I mean, obviously we did get a hotel room for some of them later on, but we didn't really have that budget. But the performers, not every performer, depending on how big they were, they did not want to stay at someone's home. They really kind of wanted their privacy. Laney of Kazan, of course, had to have the suite at the New Hope Inn. But there were others that were very comfortable. And Julie Wilson, when Julie Wilson came, she wanted to stay here with me. I would move down from my third floor and give her that bedroom. She would come down in a bathrobe and she would be unrecognizable. And when I would be making my smoothies and she would say, make me one too. I said, oh, Julie, it's got peanut butter and spinach and and protein. She said, great. So, and Billy Stritch was another one. There were a handful of them that always stayed with me. And I love that. It was so much fun. Randy Roberts was probably my favorite house guest. It was like, I hated to see him leave. One house guest, whose name I won't mention, who became rather famous, was the worst house guest, only because he didn't talk to you. He just was so into his music and writing and stuff, and he didn't make the bed. He left the room like he was staying at a cheap hotel. And but I didn't care. Who cares? He was an accompanist. No, he was he was an accompanist for the show, but he's not known as an accompanist anymore. He became a Tony Award winner, songwriter. Any Mary A stories? Mary A was the best. So Mary A was in one of the pictures. Not sure if it made it into our reel here. But Mary Alice Kennedy was a dress shop owner in New Hope. She had long legs. She was once, oh, there she is. She's in the back with the reddish hair. I never forget back in back before I was playing at Odette's, when I wasn't even living in New Hope, I was living in Doylestown. I used to get my hair cut at a place in New Hope called Sheer Artistry. And I was looking at, they have, like, while you're getting your haircut, you see these little loops of hair colors. And I said to the hairdresser, I said, I want that color. And it was this red, like Lucille Ball hair. He says, I have a customer with that color. I do her hair that color. And I went, oh, I know her. And it was Mary A. Well, Mary A. was the best. What Mary A. loved to do was she would come in. We would race her upstairs on a Monday night, and then I would play something like, and she would start coming down one leg at a time. And we'd work it, and then she would come out and she would do high kicks. She was in her late 80s and still could do her high kicks. Amazing. And she never used digital cameras when they came out. She always used traditional cameras that you had to have the film developed. And every time when she got her pictures back, there was an orb. You could always see the ghost. In all 21 years, I never saw the ghost. I had one experience with the ghost. I was playing one night on a Saturday night. There was no one near me. It was almost time to close. And this glass of wine that someone left here just went like flying. It was as if a hand just whacked it. And I went, it was the weirdest thing. That was my only ghost story. She was a skater, right? Mary Alice was a skater, and she had a dress. Applause was her dress shop, and she loved Halloween because she loved to sell dresses to anyone that would get in one, especially all the men at Halloween. And she had boas to beat the band. Where is the Odette's haunted lamp now? I would like to know. I would like that lamp. I would like that. I don't know if you saw this back here. These are some other great pictures of Odette's. This was on we did a nice tribute to her in New Hope Historical Society last year, and I bid on and won the poster of all the great pictures of Odette's, because it's nice to have that. So I don't know where that lamp is now. I don't know. I have a parking lot sign. I know that. Anyone else? It was a great, our New Year's Eves were to beat the band, the flood. Oh, so here's the thing with the floods. This is a weird thing about the floods. I know that there's things happen and people that are into numerology and crazy stuff like that. Yeah, isn't that sad? Odette sat really low. And there's a reason why Odette's after, it was actually 4 floods, but 3 that were really bad. Actually, it was 5 floods, but 3 that were really bad. And this was probably the one that did it in. There was a problem with the dams up in New York, and they were letting too much water out when the storms came. But and this was Odette's. This was the river house before Odette bought it. And then I have another picture of it a little later. That's a little later too. And the only thing I didn't have is the picture of Odette's before it was torn down. Fortunately, it was moved, the original building. But Odette's, we had the first flood was in September, was in fall of 2006. Then we had spring of 2007, literally like 5 months later, another flood. And then a year later, we had the final one in June of 2007. So that was 2008. It was 3 floods in 20 months, and each of them were really bad, really devastating. So it was a sad time, and I think Jane and I both knew when we left that Saturday night that we weren't going to be back, because we couldn't see how it was going to happen again. It was a sad time. Not really. Mother Cavalucci, Joe Cavalucci was an institution in New Hope. He was an Italian guy from South Philadelphia that moved out to New Hope years ago. And he used to work at the Raven and other restaurants, and he didn't drive, so you'd always see him walking around. And he was absolute hysterical character, and probably quite a few stories, almost as many as Odette, as there were of Odette. But he never came there. But when I played at other places, he had come in and he would do his Hello Dolly number, and he didn't sing, he just lip synced. And he didn't quite lip sync either. It was just kind of just move his lips, but he had a heart of gold, absolute heart of gold. He bought me lunch one time, and I'll never forgot that. I'm trying to think, there were a couple other things I wanted to make sure I told you about too. The worst thing that happened in the cabaret, my saddest day of the cabaret was was right before that was the happiest day. We had Rosalind Kine come. Now, Rosalind Kine, it was pretty exciting to have all these people that were the sister or the brother or the daughter of somebody famous, because you might get their sibling walk in. So we had Rosalind Kine, who's Barbra Streisand's half sister. And even though her agent insisted that I do not bill her as Barbara's sister, I didn't, but all the papers did. And when I confronted the papers, they said, "We did you a favor." And I said, "You did, you're right." And we were sold out, and it was great. And people were all there because they thought Barbara was going to come. Barbara didn't come. But Rosalind was great. She was such a treat to work with. It was wonderful. So her agent talks me into bringing her back for the fall, and but forbids me to mention anything about Barbara. And this time I got everyone to stick to it. And about a third of the people came. And when I met up with her to pay her, I had to give her $1,600, which was my vacation money that I had saved for a year to go to a trip to like Puerto Vallarta or somewhere. And I just handed it over to pay for that. That was the saddest. It was a rainy, like at a Mother's restaurant. It was a rainy Monday morning when I met up with them to get that envelope. But the show was great. We also had Melissa Newman, Paul Newman's daughter, and that was packed too. And everybody's watching the show going, they're all looking around to see if they're here. And, it's great when you got the rumors out saying that their parents always come. Great rumors to have going around. Great rumors. Any other questions? We love questions. I could go on about it forever. Some of the stories that Roger told me were so damn funny. I will tell one about his mother, just change some of the language in it. But My favorite story that Roger used to tell about his mother was, well, there were about 6 of them, but there was one, he said that a couple was at the bar one night and they were complaining about their food to another couple. And Odette sort of eased in and she said, "Excuse me, but I could not help but overhear your conversation." She says, "Your dinner was not good?" They said, "Oh, Odette, no." She said, the broccoli was cold. The broccoli was cold. She said the meat was grizzly. The meat was grizzly. The potatoes weren't cooked. She said, "Potatoes weren't cooked." She, furious, she disappears, runs off into the kitchen, and you can hear dishes breaking. She's throwing dishes at the chef and yelling and screaming, saying, "What do you mean the broccoli was cold?" He said, "I don't know. Maybe these warmers weren't working on this side. The potatoes not cooked." He says, "I don't know. Some are big, some are smaller." He said, "And the meat grizzly." He says, "I don't know. Everybody said the meat was fantastic tonight." And I'm sure it was Michelle Foray, my friend, that was her chef. Poor, I can just picture this happening. And she came back out and she came up to the couple and she said, "Excuse me, I want to tell you that I have spoken to the chef and this will never happen again in my restaurant." And they said, "Oh, Odette, we didn't eat here. We were just telling them about our dinner down at the," well, I think it was the Logan, but we're talking about 40 years ago. And she said, "Get out." Just hysterical. But we had the most characters ever. My favorite expression, which started at Odette's, was, "You can't make this shit up." And I mean that in the most loving way. We had Tally, this guy that came in and wore the most loudest clothes and sang real high, and he was hysterical. We had Sonny, this guy that did Al Jolson songs, and he came in and I can't even describe him, stinking of cologne and a red crushed like a old style tux jacket, and he never spent any money. He used to get he would get water at the bar, and we knew because he had a flask in his car, but we didn't care because he brought so much entertainment to it when he walked in. So we were full of characters. Odette was full of characters. New Hope is full of characters, and the more the merrier. New Hope embraces all kinds of people. I love living in New Hope. I can't imagine wanting to live anywhere else. We come to New Hope originally because it's so beautiful, but we stay here and want to live here because of the people. And so thank you so much for having me on to this tonight. And I hope we get many more years together and we're all back again somewhere singing and making music in person.
Hey guys, I'm Dan Brooks. I am the founder of New Hope Celebrates and also the founder of New Hope Celebrates History and as its director. I just want to thank you all for coming to the Artist and Authors series. It will be continuing bi-monthly and we have lots to look forward to. Hopefully you all have had the opportunity to view our many exhibits, which we've done both at the county level and at the local level. Hopefully some of you have been able to look at our archive, which is stacked with stories and photographs that have been donated by many individuals recalling the history of the LGBT community in New Hope. All of these things are funded, again, solely through contributions. So I appeal to you, if you want to see more of this, this is where we need your help. As a final PS, I'm not letting you go yet, just as a reminder that both New Hope Celebrates and New Hope Celebrates History donations are tax deductible. So as we end the year, and you guys might be looking for some tax deductions, this might be an opportunity for you. One last thing, just remember, our history starts here. See you soon.
getting ready for my close-up, Mr. Millman.